Alright everyone, today I'm going to be taking you through 5 different tips that I feel that every player should know before they actually get immersed in the world of Shadow of War. These 5 tips will help you have a better experience. Some of it's very useful stuff. It will prevent you from, losing certain captains. It's just going to make your life better in general in the game. So without further ado, let's get started. Number 1 is knowing when and where to use your Uruk captains and where to slot them and why. Now, there's a big reason for this, and the core principle of Shadow of War is kind of attacking and defending different strongholds. As you can see, if I were to back out here, I'll do all this in real time instead of scripting it and, editing it together later on. If you were to look here, I've conquered all the regions except for Gorgoroth right now. There are other regions not yet available. I'm pretty sure they'll be there with DLC, but I've conquered everything except Gorgoroth. Now, if I were to go in and look at Gorgoroth as if I were going to attack it, I have a variety of options here. I can either attack the stronghold right away, which would be fairly difficult. There'd be a lot of different steps I would have to go through because there are, 6 different war chiefs here that I would have to contend with before even going in to fight the Overlord. And I can start to take them out. So before attacking this fortress, I would want to take out the war chiefs. But after I've done that, I don't need to look for my strongest orcs. In fact, I don't want to put strong orcs in the war chief slot at all. The reason being, they're not going to do anything. What happens with fortress assaults is you basically go through, you either kill or dominate or convert the enemy war chiefs, and then you assault the fortress, and that's very easy. That's the easy part. And then by yourself, you go in and you fight the Overlord. And during that fight, you don't have access to any allies. You don't have your previously converted orc captains. The war chiefs that you've converted or inserted into the enemy lines don't help you. So if you put your strongest captains, if I were to take all of my strongest guys, this poisonous machine destroyer, let's say he's my favorite captain, I slot him into a war chief slot before I attack the castle, then I attack the castle. He, of course, comes to my aid because he is a spy that's infiltrated, and then I go and I fight the Overlord. If I lose that battle, he could be captured. My best captains that I have slotted into the war chief slot, they could be captured, they could be killed, or they could just simply disappear entirely, and that's not something you want to happen. So the best way to use your orc captains while attacking a fortress is to slot the weakest, most irrelevant commanders that you have into the war chief position. Take out all 6 of the war chiefs, or 5 or 4, for whatever stronghold you're attacking. Take them all out and slot weak captains that you don't care about into those slots and then attack. They'll serve the exact same purpose, and you're not going to lose guys that you care about. You're not going to lose your special legendary guys that you farmed so hard for, or gotten out of a microtransaction pack. You're not going to lose them if you were to lose the Overlord fight, and that only happens one time. If you lose the Overlord fight, you lose all of your war chiefs, so they could get killed, captured, they'll retreat, disappear, whatever. But then you can retry that fight over and over, and it will be very straightforward. So the gist of it is only slot captains that you don't care about into fortresses that you are infiltrating and attacking. The second key thing when using your orc captains properly comes during the Shadow Wars section of the campaign, in which you are defending the previously captured fortresses from large attacking orc armies. This is a really fun section, but there is one key thing to note. When you're defending a fortress, you're going to have some time to prep which orc captain is in what slot before you initiate that defense mission. And it's very important to know that you are not going to be using your Overlord. Your Overlord does not get any playtime at all during these defense missions. So if I'm over here, let's say I'm defending Saragost, as we can see here. If I go into the army panel, let's wait till it loads up here. Come on, game. There we go. If we load into the army panel, you can see that I have a legendary fiery machine tank, Olrock Hothead, as my Overlord. I would not want that to be the case. I would actually want that legendary, depending on how strong he is, depending on what perks he has, depending on how much I like him, and how much, relative power he has at slaying other orcs. I would want him in a war chief slot. While you are defending these fortresses during the Shadow Wars, your Overlord does nothing at all. And if you lose the defense mission, your Overlord will be captured, perhaps killed. This means that you want all of your strongest possible orcs in the war chief slot so that they will actively be helping you during the mission. This will make it a lot easier. So use your orc captains properly, especially during the later phases of the game, and know that the only thing that an Overlord is good for, the only reason to have him in a fortress, is to prevent other players from having an easy time attacking your fortress. But most people don't really care about that. A lot of people are only playing this game for PvE. Next up is currency, and this is really straightforward, so I'll try and keep it brief. You want to be saving all of the currency that you earn, whether it's the free to earn Mirian or the premium version that you get little bits of, the gold version. You want to be saving all of this at least until you are level 40 to 45. The reason being that you're going to be purchasing silver war chests that give you 2 orc followers. At that point, they cost 1,500 each, and they cost the same no matter what level you are. If you buy these chests when you're level 10, you're actually going to get orcs that scale to your level, Talion's level, which means you'll get orcs that are only level 8 or 9. If you wait until after level 40, you're going to be getting orcs that are, 40, 41, 2, 3, 4. And those are going to be useful during the entire end stages of the game. When you are grinding, there's a increased grind emphasis to get the good ending, the good cutscene. It's very controversial, but basically there's a huge grind at the end of the game, so save all of your currency until minimum after level 40. Another thing is that you should never be purchasing the silver loot chests. The reason for this is it gives 2 pieces of gear, at least 1 rare, but the silver war chest that gives you 2 orc followers, you can actually dismantle your orc followers to then get gear from them as a drop. So the silver war chest not only gives you 2 orcs, which could be very, very valuable with the right stat rolls on them, it also gives you 2 pieces of gear if you don't like those orcs, and it gives a consumable, which is either training orders or a 2-hour spoils of war boost. So save all of your currency till minimum level 40, and then only spend that currency on war chests, only the orc follower chests. Next up is gems and gear and using them properly. A lot of people may be tempted to wait, till they get the right high tier gem before they slot it into a piece of gear. But the best advice is that you should purchase all of your gem slots on your gear as soon as you possibly can, and then slot the best tier of gem that you have into it right away, because you can switch them out at will. As you can see, I have a refined warrior gem in this slot. I can swap it out whenever I want to for a regular warrior gem, and I will still have it. They are not consumables. So always have the highest tier gem that you own slotted in, and then whenever you get extra gems, you can unslot them and then refine them upwards, craft the next tier of gem and then switch it out. This is something that is quite helpful. I highly recommend putting in wealth gems for increased experience gain in your armor slots as well. And have different gems for different reasons and swap them out at will, and always make sure that you're upgrading them. This is something that's very easy to do. I encountered a couple people that asked me about this and said, hey, do gems get consumed? Do they get destroyed? Are you able to take them out? What's the setup with that? And that's pretty straightforward. You should always have the highest tier you can. The next thing is that gear itself is going to have different stats, and I highly recommend having different pieces of gear for different purposes. As you can see here, it says 50% increased damage dealt by Uruk allies, and then in the gem slot, I have a rune, which gives me 25% increased follower damage. Both of these stats apply to orcs that you are putting into the fight pits. So when you have an orc that's going into the fight pits and you have a rune that has the 50% increased damage dealt by Uruk allies, plus the 25% from increased follower damage, he's actually dealing 75% increased damage in the fight pits, and that's going to allow you to get some of these first-time bonuses. That's going to allow you to defeat, over-leveled enemies that normally you wouldn't have a chance against with certain followers. So have different pieces of gear for different purposes. It's very fast to earn gear. You get a drop every single time you send an orc into the fight pit. Whether or not it's the enemy orc that dies or your own orc, you will get a piece of gear, and oftentimes it's over-leveled. There's a certain perk in the character tree that you can use, which will increase the quality of drops. So always make sure that you have the right gear equipped for the activity that you're going to be doing. Have experience gear on if you're doing any quests, any main story stuff, and then have increased follower damage or, decreased damage taken by allies always equipped in your gem and rune slot if you're using the fight pits. Next up is leveling efficiency, and the reason for this is because at first the game goes very fast, you level very quickly, it all seems very streamlined, but then towards the later stages it slows down tremendously. And there's a couple things that you can do to kind of mitigate this and insulate yourself against this effect, and the biggest thing is to save all of your premium currency and purchase a specific bonus. You can get premium currency from various challenges. There's a community challenge that will happen, that'll give you a nice chunk, I think 500. The Drake Rider is the daily challenge that will give you 50. There's other ways that you can get some. You can purchase some if you'd really like to, but there are ways to earn it for free. And the stuff that you do earn for free, the currency that you are able to get without paying any real world money, you should always be spending, let's go to the market here, always be spending on XP boosts. The reason for this is because it gives a 2-hour boost of 100% bonus experience, and what you should be doing is buying 1 or 2 of these at least. That's what the premium currency is best suited for, at least the stuff you can get for free from the challenges. Always be buying experience boosts and then using those experience boosts to specifically complete side missions or side main story quests. Not necessarily the main story if you don't want to advance, but do things like the Karnan quests with that experience boost active. Also do things like the Bruise quests, or various other Altariel quests, or things like Shelob quests, Gondor quests. Anything with a sort of main mission feel to it. It will be a structured mission. It will give a large chunk of experience, further increased by 100%. If you do have runes slotted in your gear, it will be an additional 125%, right? Because you get 25% from both of the runes, 12.5 from each. And then all of this will factor into you getting tremendous amounts of experience from missions. This will level your Talion up a lot faster, and it will help you reach a competitive level where during the end game phase of the campaign, during the Shadow Wars, you're not going to have to grind out the slower progressing captain missions and assassinations and things like that. You're going to be able to just play the game in a more streamlined way. So the heavy emphasis is on buying experience boosts with your premium currency, and only experience boosts. At least 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, and use them while you're doing the main campaign missions. Last up is to intentionally diversify the weapons and the mechanics that you have at your fingertips. Now, what I mean by this is that a lot of different allies, let's look at the army for a second and show a couple of the captains. All of the captains have different weaknesses or strengths, etc. So as you can see, if we were to simulate that I was going up against Bork Bloodhound, you're going to see that he's fireproof and immune to curses. If I have a weapon, if I have a piece of gear that gives me, bonus fire damage, or I can light enemies on fire, that's not going to work against him. If I have something with poison, it will. So always take into consideration the weaknesses, immunities, etc. This guy, for instance, has beast fodder, which means he's heavily damaged by beast attacks, and structure your character accordingly before a fight. But also, if you don't really want to do that, because it can be a little bit slow and tedious to always look at an enemy and then structure your character and then go through and fix everything, you can kind of prep for that in a little bit more of a forward-looking way. If we look at our character sheet here, there's going to be quite a few different things that we can see. We have detonate, and then we have spider song. We can detonate a fire pit and cause spiders to swarm the area. Now, spiders, they have poison damage, which means that we would have poison available in the vast majority of situations in our toolkit to attack enemy commanders. There's also a lot of different things you can do with gear. Specifically, let's look at our inventory. We can have a sword here, which has critical hits have a 45% chance to light enemies on fire. So using this weapon would give me fire in my toolkit, and I've already got fire and poison covered. Then you can go back and you can look at the character sheet, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. This is not the only way, but you can cycle down and you can find things like summon ally. You can have call mount here, so you can press the left arrow key to summon a dominated Karagor, and then you can upgrade that to upgrade call Grog. And the Grog is a heavy tank. It can destroy enemy captains very easily. You can use it in the throne room against overlords, etc. And this is a beast. So right there, you've already got fire damage, poison damage, beast damage, and that's 3 different weaknesses that you can exploit if you were to run into an enemy that was vulnerable to those. You can do the same thing with things like, your inventory here. You can look for, let's say, cloaks that will give you bonuses to maybe frost damage. There is frost damage available in the character tree itself. If you were to dodge over something, sometimes you can trigger a frost attack and then use that. The bow can use frost, etc. There's a whole bunch of different ways, but what you want to be doing is always looking for bonuses that are of different elemental damage types and then using them and having them in your toolkit. Once you've done that, you can exploit any weakness that you encounter, and it's pretty straightforward. That's going to wrap it up for the 5 things that every player should know and take into consideration when playing Shadow of War. It's a really great game, but one last tip that I have, it's not part of the top 5, but one last tip that I have. Anyone out there that's still considering, purchasing this game, that's thinking about getting it because the experience is good, I have one huge request. Don't purchase this game by itself right away if you have not played Shadow of Mordor. Shadow of War is the sequel to Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of Mordor is significantly cheaper. So if you purchase Shadow of Mordor, you can get all of the DLC very cheap. It's a fraction of the price. You can play dozens of hours of content that is very similar to Shadow of War. And if you then really enjoyed the experience, then you should purchase Shadow of War. So don't jump right into Shadow of War if you haven't played the prequel, which is Shadow of Mordor. Please consider purchasing that. You might save yourself some money. Otherwise, you'll probably have a great experience and get even more hours of Lord of the Rings content for a marginally increased price. But I think it's very, very, very much worth it. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. That's just kind of an aside. I don't want anyone to jump into this and regret purchasing the game, even though it is very good and I highly recommend it. There are various links down below if you want to support the channel. There's a lot of ways to get integrated with Upper Echelon, and I hope to be expanding the types of games that I cover, expanding the types of guide content that I do. This one was completely different. It was not scripted at all. I did all of this just stream of consciousness, off the cuff, which I've been asked to do. People said that I sounded too much like a robot, so I'm trying to take that into consideration. So let me know how that went in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Again, check out the links if you want to support. And as always, have a nice night.